Hi, this is Professor Schmidt. Just wanted to touch base with you real quickly. Make sure you're making good progress in the class. We're very interested and excited about some of your postings, and remember that those postings are supposed to be, to some extent at least, your impressions, your sort of opinion pieces, and share with us as much as you can. The other thing I wanted to do was to talk about due dates because, we are having to make progress. There's a little calendar like this over here on this side. It has weekly quizzes, bulletin board postings, and the small kind of research think paper down here. And there are August, September, October, and November dates. And I guess since we are here in September, at the beginning of September, I want you to look forward at the other dates on this thing on the home page in WebCT. Mark your calendars. We have put the due date for the small research paper. The research paper has to be submitted in 3 parts. So the topic idea, and then an outline, fairly elaborate outline really with details, and then the final write-up. And we put it around October 25th, and that's kind of pushing it for this class. So please don't wait that long. Start working on it now. I think we have given you generous amounts of time. The load in this class, I think, is fair and not very heavy, and that's so that you can put in a lot of effort into your thinking and your postings, and make sure you do those every due date as well on the bulletin board. So, a little housekeeping: how to get through this class with a gold star on your final grade. I wanted to talk about very briefly the fact that we are identifying this particular offering of the class, this particular term, as having a theme of either disasters or certainly sort of stressful conditions and responses to those. I want to make clear that coastal policy, back here behind me, you can see the United States, which this class is mostly about the United States. And so we've got coastal areas, East Coast, coastal areas, West Coast. We've got a few territories around. We don't do too much with Alaska, but we do have the Great Lakes as well. And those coastal areas, of course, next semester we will look at the entire rest of the world, which, as you can see, has enormous numbers of coastal areas. The coastal areas themselves are not the only interest and concern and geographical and physical venue for those of us like myself and you who are interested in coastal zone management and coastal policy. The architecture of the coast and what I call the landscape of the coast involves both landscapes, which means a lot of stuff that's in the interior, and seascapes, which is a lot of things that is not on the coast but off far away from the coast. And you know that, but we sometimes get tunnel vision and we start talking about the coastal areas as if it were only the range along the beaches and marshes of the east and west coast and the Gulf Coast. I'm in Iowa right now, and in Iowa, here in the center of the United States, we have very vigorous agriculture, a huge amount of use of fertilizers and pesticides in order to produce these modern crops that feed the U.S. and the world. And as you know, there's a tremendous problem with runoff, especially nitrogen runoff that goes down the Mississippi River. It drains from all of the drainage basins. I have a creek right here by my farm called Indian Creek. It was huge. It was a whole lake. Recently, when we had big storms, the road got half washed out, and I can see it right now because we had some big thunderstorms today. That is runoff from all these farm fields that are around me. It goes down Indian Creek and eventually ends up in various rivers, the Iowa River, and then eventually in the Mississippi River, and then in the Gulf of Mexico. That is part of coastal policy, because the impact of things that are not physically on the coast, in fact, that could be thousands of miles away, are very powerful on the coast. The same is true of things that happen. Here is West Africa, and you know that over here on this end of West Africa, we're very interested in things that happen there periodically, especially during this time of year, because the things that maybe happen over there can come and bite us and have a big effect on us. In fact, I'm looking at a map of Africa right now, and there is a thing called Tropical Storm Igor, which is currently off the coast of West Africa, and those things all move west, and so we expect a visit from Igor somewhere. You also know that from that particular perspective, we have a lot of hurricanes, and I'm looking at a list of the 2010 hurricane names. I think there were 21 of them. I counted them recently. And so you have Alex and Bonnie and Colin and Danielle and Earl and Fiona and Gaston. And right now we have Hermione, which just passed through the Gulf of Mexico, kind of into Mexico, up the coast. And a lot of rain, a lot of tremendous flooding in Texas. The flooding is going to produce runoff. Right here, thousands of miles away in Iowa, we are going to feel the effects. In fact, we're already starting to feel the effects of that hurricane, which turned very quickly into a tropical storm. I don't remember if it was even ever a real hurricane, but enormous pressure system and moisture moving into the United States. The rain will run off, it'll run back into the Gulf of Mexico. What's the point of what I'm talking about here? Well, the point is that for you and I, what happens inland and as well as what happens way offshore are also all part of coastal policy and coastal zone management. And in terms of the responsibilities of people who are professionals in this field, or scientists, if you want to be a researcher and a scientist, you can go to places that are not necessarily near the coast and do incredibly important both research as well as make policy recommendations and develop policies, government policies, jointly with nonprofits, with the private sector companies, farmers, and others that will have a huge impact on the coastal zones. And I wanted to make sure that the discussion in your mind, the kind of the discussion that goes on in people's heads includes that. One of the things, of course, you already know, and we're not going to explore it very much, is that earthquakes are very much part of the coastal environment. And on the west coast of the United States, of course, we know that we have the Pacific plate pushing down under the North American plate, and as it pushes, it creates an interesting coastal landscape that's very different from the East Coast, which has essentially the eroded mountains as the frontal area of the coast, and so it's sandy and has a lot of barrier islands and is very flat and extends forever, is very marshy, and the Pacific coast is not like that, because those plates that are diving under have created a very clean, harsh coastline with not too many beaches. And we know that earthquakes and floods and fires and then rainstorms and then runoff from the mountains are all part of how the West Coast is essentially replenished and constructed. And so when we see fires, which we're seeing right now, we're seeing some terrible fires, and things out on the West Coast. We'll see them in California. Those actually produce then a denuded landscape where the rains will wash away a lot of the soil, dirt, sand. It'll wash down the mountains and end up on the shore. And when it does, that's how those beaches are built. It's tragic for human beings, for roads, for cars, flat screen TVs, and for human life. But it is very much part of the natural environment, and unfortunately, nature is a pretty violent partner with us, and those earthquakes and tectonic plates diving, fires, rains, floods are all part of the ecosystem of the West Coast and are very important to it. We couldn't do without those, or the West Coast couldn't do without them. Really enjoying the class. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you on the internet. Thank you.